Hello, everyone, and thanks for listening to the Quality Hub, Chatting with ISO Experts. I'm your host, Xavier Francis, and today we're here with a fan favorite, Suzanne Weber-Smatko, Manager of Consulting Services, again from here at CORE. Glad you could join us again.
Always glad to be here, X. It just seems like I was just here, so
yeah.
Here we are again.
Here we are again, and we are glad to have you with us. Now, this week's podcast is the first in a two-part series with Suzanne called ISO 9001 Senior Management. With this first part, we're going to be talking about training. But before we dig into that, let's learn a little bit about our guest. Now, I have an odd question. Which burner on your stove is your favorite?
My right front burner.
Mine is my right front burner as well.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
Yes. It's interesting that as adults, I find that we have our favorite burner and we have our favorite pot and pan.
Well, it's because it has multiple options there, right? So it can be, the whole burner or a warmer or the center of the burner. It's electric. So,
Yeah. It's funny because I talked to my brother-in-law and he's like, no, man, you got to go left front. I'm like, no, it's right front. So we've learned that about you. But when it gets back to senior management, obviously you've been doing this for a long time and you've worked with senior management for a long time.
Yes. So with this topic today, it's kind of near and dear to my heart. So you asked a little bit about me, which I've said that multiple times. I think everybody knows I've spent 30 plus years in quality, but most of that, say over the last 20 years, I've been in a management position.
Mm-hmm.
What we're going to talk about today is really important for a successful and good quality management system. So I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's dive into the first question. Why is it so critical for senior management to be involved in the ISO 9001 process?
Well, senior management's involvement, it's critical because they're responsible for establishing the strategic direction of a company.
Absolutely.
Along with that, they align, the right resources or can support to provide the right resources. They set the culture within the organization.
Mm-hmm.
They're the driving force behind the commitment to quality and continuous improvement.
Yes.
Ensuring that quality management principles are integrated into the business strategy is important for ISO. And, their leadership ensures that quality objectives or whatever the company measures to manage it better are met. They play a crucial role in the allocation of resources and make sure that the processes align and just the organization's overall mission and goals. So that's, you start there.
They are the impetus that drives the QMS. It's just no other way.
Yep.
So what are the key elements of ISO 9001 that senior management must understand? We talked about training. Say you get a hold of somebody and we're starting their 9001 journey. What do they need to know?
So depending on the level for which you are in an organization, I know we're specifically talking about senior management, but depending on the level that you're at, really depends on who should know what.
Okay.
Senior management, they need to know context of the organization.
Okay.
Basically, that's really understanding the internal and external factors that can affect the organization's ability to achieve quality objectives.
Okay.
So you have to understand the risks that are introduced, both internal and external risks to your business. The ISO 9001 standard, along with many of the other standards, are really there to drive improvement, continuous improvement. But that can also come from risks. So you identify what kind of risks are introduced to the business, whether that's an overall assessment to understand what your internal and external risks are as a business. But that should be done in multiple processes throughout the company when you're doing contract review. What risks are introduced, and not just identify them, but have something in place to either mitigate the risk, because that's how you achieve continuous improvement, or you can show evidence of continuous improvement.
Okay.
I'd say another thing is quality objectives and the policy. Setting measurable quality objectives aligned with the organization's strategic goals and ensuring that they are met. So you might have a senior leadership group set that 3 to 5 year strategic plan and have upper level goals, but they should disseminate down into smaller, whether it's department goals or smaller organizational goals that are going to drive the organization to meet their strategic goals.
Right. Anything else?
Yeah, resource management. I think that's important. ensuring that you have the resources, whether it's human resources or infrastructure or information that you need available to you to maintain a good quality management system.
Okay.
I think that's underestimated sometimes. And then there's performance evaluation. How are you going to measure how effective your quality management system is for you?
Right.
Are you going to, review monthly performance metrics? Are you going to review your improvement initiatives? I think that's important when in the context of the business and senior management's responsibility is that you do provide the resources. And if you don't take advantage of documenting or have a well-documented improvement plan, whether it be from any risks that are introduced to the business or just improvement initiatives that you're making. If you don't have them written down, it's really, really hard, even for a senior management team, to demonstrate their commitment to improvements or continuous improvement, because they're not writing it down. It's in a lot of people's heads, right?
Yeah.
Like every manager might have all of these things that they're working on. They lack the understanding in some cases to the importance to document that.
Oh, and also shows the alignment, making sure you're focused on the right thing.
Sure. And I've in my past used continuous improvement initiatives in my own performance, whether it was the performance of the managers at the different sites that I was managing or my own, right? When I sat down in front of my boss and they say, what did you do for the organization this year? If you have it written down, you can easily point to those things and say, this is how I've contributed to quality and the overall strategic plan of the business.
Right. Senior leadership, again, kind of holds the keys to making the QMS successful.
Sure.
Now, how does training senior management differ from training other staff members? You mentioned it a little bit, that they have the high level picture, but how is it really different?
For senior management, the training really emphasizes the strategic aspects of ISO 9001, including, those things that we talked about, decision making, setting the direction of the QMS, and just fostering an overall quality culture. Training is typically high level and tailored to their role in overseeing the system's effectiveness. In contrast, training for other staff members is more operational and focuses on the day-to-day activities.
Right.
Understanding procedures and ensuring compliance. Senior management needs to focus on leadership, risk management, and aligning the quality management system to ensure that it aligns strategically with their goals.
Okay. So when you train them, that's what you're focusing on.
Yes.
What specific responsibilities do senior management have under ISO? So we talked about it a little bit, and it's probably some of the same things we talked about, but this is what ISO says they need to handle.
Yeah. I mean, the QMS, when I say QMS, I say quality management systems, but I don't want to assume that people know that, because sometimes, but the quality management system is established, it's implemented and maintained. I mean, it's easy for a company. We sort of simplify the implementation of an ISO system, but the work comes in to sustain it.
Right. I think we've talked about multiple times what happens after you've been certified.
Yes.
That's not the end. That's
right.
actually the beginning.
We've had discussions on that, and we've had some podcasts on that. It's not done, but management holds that responsibility to make sure that it's not only implemented, but it's sustainable.
Right.
And it's in your best interest too, because whether you're going for compliance or certification, that certification is monetarily not cheap to get. Right. So it's an investment in your organization.
Yeah.
I would say defining and promoting the organization's policy or quality policy and setting those clear objectives, making sure that you effectively communicate what that strategic alignment is.
Right.
Demonstrating leadership and commitment to the quality management system can also be done by ensuring that it's integrated into business processes, right? It's not a separate thing. Right. It's not a separate thing. Touching on the necessary resources, whether it be humans, financial, infrastructure, you've got to make sure they have a commitment in the standard in order to make sure that they have sufficient resources.
Infrastructure, like when you look at manufacturing, infrastructure can be a really big issue when you're talking about, especially from a quality standpoint. If you're working with tools that are getting outdated, getting worn,
absolutely,
spend a lot of downtime.
You're not doing preventative maintenance.
Yep.
You're not doing, have a good calibration program, which are all
requirements
of the standard. Yep. So when infrastructure could mean a lot.
Yep.
But it's things that you can't do your job without.
Right.
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 Like you said, you have outdated equipment or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I would say engagement with different stakeholders, customers, suppliers, employees, to understand their needs
Mm-hmm.
and their expectation. I think that is another key variable here when it comes to what responsibility senior management holds.
Right.
And then again, the performance of the QMS, however you're going to measure it.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you're initiating corrective actions, make sure you're fostering and have actions and owners to that continual improvement plan that we talked about before.
Okay.
Those things are primarily what senior management responsibility is relative to the quality
standard
management system. Yep.
Now, what are the best practices for motivating senior management to embrace these? Just like everybody else, they're busy doing their day-to-day stuff.
Yes.
And you talked about kind of integrating it. And we talked about that before, integrating it into what you're already doing. But how do you really get them motivated to do this stuff?
Put a dollar amount to it.
There you go. Well, that's about,
That's always worked for me.
That's always, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can, for the most part, for poor quality, put a dollar amount to it.
Yeah.
Because if you have a good quality management system and you have good continuous improvement initiatives, then it will absolutely positively impact your P&L.
Yeah.
Your bottom line. And that's what we're in business to do, right?
Right.
Is grow and make money. But what I would say is that linking quality to business goals and putting a cost to it.
Yeah.
ISO 9001 inherently should drive business improvement. If it's not, there's something wrong. You don't have an effective system.
Right.
But those business goals also should align with your customer satisfaction. And ultimately that can impact the competitiveness of your business.
Right. Absolutely. What else?
I would say involving senior leaders early, right? If you engage your senior management early in the process and ensure that they have a clear understanding of the potential benefits, you're more likely to get support. Ultimately comes down to your return on investment. Demonstrate how investing in an ISO 9000 system can lead to long-term cost savings, better risk management, improved efficiency, and again, positively impacting that bottom line, right? So that culture is important, right? Encourage a culture where quality is seen as a strategic advantage rather than I have to be compliant to this.
Yeah.
Like it's a gotta do.
Yeah.
And that really starts at the beginning of your process of implementing a quality management system, is making sure that you have that buy-in and you effectively communicate that to all employees of the business.
Yep. I know we've talked about quality culture in recent podcasts.
Sure. I mean, I've seen in many cases throughout my career or even now implementing ISO 9001 or AS 9100, it's amazing how many people don't really measure things. And also, I'm mentioning this because it definitely provides evidence of success stories out there. Many businesses don't really measure to manage things.
Right.
There's documentation requirements for a quality management system that require you to document corrective actions, document nonconformances, have a formal process for customer feedback. All of that is not because the standard wants you to document things, right? They don't want it to be administratively burdensome. And the better your quality management system gets, the less that you document those things. However, all of those things are so that you can do trends and analysis to identify areas of improvement.
Right.
Because if you're having a lot of NCRs, you're having a lot of corrective actions, you're having a lot of rework, you're having a lot of scrap, you're having a lot of this, you're having a lot of that, that all adds up.
Yeah.
I've identified it in my past as strategic goals for my direct reports, but I also have helped a lot of companies identify things that they can measure internally in order to drive a good quality management system. And there's definitely evidence there that it can.
Yeah. Be a success. And make sure you celebrate those things.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, real briefly, you don't have to elaborate too much on each one, but what do you find some of the common challenges are when training senior management?
Oh, I would say lack of time.
Yeah.
Everybody's got, especially these days, a lot of people are wearing different hats, but senior management, it often has, limitations on time to dedicate to such things due to their busy schedules. So if you can have a resource to focus on that and hold them accountable, That's very, very helpful.
That is very helpful.
I would say resistance to change.
That's a human thing.
Yeah.
But man, if you're in, especially when you're leadership and you're like, oh yeah, tell me to do something else now.
Yeah.
Let's add that to my plate. Excuse me, I'm senior.
Some of us are set in our ways.
Yeah.
Senior managers have a tendency to be resistant to new processes. Like, why do I need that? Why do I want to implement just something extra? They might not see the immediate value.
Right.
Or understand the need to change.
Which actually we're going to talk about a little bit of that from middle manager perspective.
Yeah.
Next week.
Yeah. They got to focus on the day-to-day operations, right? They're focusing on operational issues rather than strategic long-term benefits of a quality management system.
Right.
The complexity of ISO 9001, the standard can seem complex or overly detailed, which may overwhelm or confuse senior managers if they don't have experience in that.
Yeah. Not realizing you can integrate it into what you're already doing.
That and we have a tendency, you talk about change, right? In my career, you see the reluctance to change or even understand that implementing a quality management system does not have to be complex, right? Which is our approach, which is an advantage, to the businesses that we work with.
Well, you hear quality management systems. So systems they're generally not simple, but that's why you have somebody like us who can.
Yeah. We simplify it. We implement a simplified quality management system and then help them to grow and mature over time. We also help people with overcomplicated quality management systems, right? To simplify them because you don't require all that documentation that you used to have to require. We talked about that
last year. Yeah. There's all that documentation that you don't have to do.
It's more important, and which kind of focuses on the resources part of it too, is because it's more about being able to demonstrate that you have competent people, the competent resources in order to follow through and execute on the processes that make up your system.
I guess all that leads to trying to help them understand the benefits of what ISO can bring.
Yeah. Without clearly understanding the advantages, senior management may not fully commit to the process, which leads to, in some cases, poor adoption. But
and not overall success in the long term.
Right.
Well, this is a lot of great information. Again, we're going to cover next week a little bit more about selling it, if you will, from your middle management up to your senior management. But do you have any other info on what we talked about today?
No, I think we've probably hit just about all the points when it comes to senior leadership.
And how to get them trained.
The
best that you can do for your quality management system. All right. Well, thank you for being here. We'll see you next week. Really appreciate you walking us through this. I think next week's podcast is going to be really good when we talk about how to engage your senior management. And again, you're going to be here for that.
Always a pleasure, X.
We want to thank everyone who's listened to our podcast today. We hope it's been informative for you. Now, if you're looking for more information about Core Business Solutions, how we can help you with ISO certification, cybersecurity, or even customized training, please email us at info@thecoresolution.com. You can also visit our website at www.thecoresolution.com. And if you haven't already followed us on your favorite podcast platform or YouTube, be sure to do so, and that way you won't miss the next Quality Hub podcast when it's dropped next week. Have a great day, everyone.